What do you expect to see?
The Atlanta Hawks are apparently really active recently in terms of trying to build a proper team around Trae Young. There's Dejounte Murray, someone they've talked reports on that the Hawks have discussed acquiring him from the Spurs. What that looks like, I'll be interested to see.
We got breaking news on a huge trade that the Atlanta Hawks just made with the San Antonio Spurs, and I'm still just trying to digest this one for myself. Now, before we break down this trade, I want to give you guys a heads up. After this video, I am going to be dropping videos on James Harden and Bradley Beal, but you are not going to get notifications for them. So make sure you join my Discord chat just in case, because once you upload more than 3 videos in a 24-hour span, which we have been, we're probably going to upload 5 videos in a 24-hour span, YouTube stops notifying you when I upload the video. And of course, if you think I talk way too freaking much in this content, we upload shorter versions of this content onto my TikTok page, which we just restarted at TheFlightMike, and as Reels on Instagram, which is also at TheFlightMike. Now that we got all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? The Atlanta Hawks have had one of the most impressive rebuilds that I think I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, this team was in contention during the 2014 to 2015 season. Yes, unfortunately, they were not able to get past LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers, but during the regular season, this team was the #1 seed in the East, and they blew it all up, drafted Trae Young. Next thing you know, a few years later, the Atlanta Hawks were in the Eastern Conference Finals once again. Now, of course, this past year, they did take a little bit of a step back, but it seemed like they found their franchise cornerstone in Trae Young, and they were doing whatever it took to surround Trae Young with good pieces moving forward. The problem with a player like Trae Young is as incredible as he is on offense and as fun as he is to watch during the playoffs. I mean, who doesn't love watching Trae Young talk smack to opposing teams? The man leaves a lot to be desired defensively. As a matter of fact, the Atlanta Hawks in general leave a lot to be desired defensively. As a matter of fact, the Atlanta Hawks were second in offensive rating this past year with a 116.5, but their defensive rating was a 114.9, which is good for 26th out of 30th in the league. Their net rating was plus 1.6, which is 14th out of 30 teams. And for the most part, man, I have to admit, I did like the mix that this team had. They had a good mix of young talent and older talent. They were loaded with young talent to the point where they practically just gave Cam Reddish away and took back Kevin Knox because Kevin Knox wasn't expected to play as many games. They had good leadership in the form of Sweet Lou Williams, who originally was planning to retire if he got traded from the Los Angeles Clippers, but he seems to be a great veteran leader there. DeAndre Hunter has remarkable two-way potential, but he hasn't really capitalized on that two-way potential after coming back from injury this past year. So there are some pieces to work with for the Atlanta Hawks. This is before we get to Clint Capella and John Collins, and of course the addition of Bogdan Bogdanovic, who was originally thought to be the perfect partner with Trae Young. And on paper, I thought he would be the perfect partner with Trae Young. Problem is he's remarkable on offense. He's not necessarily the greatest on defense. He isn't like a defensive liability, but he isn't necessarily a superstar on the defensive end. On top of that, Bogdan Bogdanovic is 29 years old, going into his age 30 season. So there were question marks in regards to how they could improve this team. And there are really good pieces once again. I mean, Kevin Huerter has been a great find. Maybe Onyeka Okongwu could turn into a pretty solid role player moving forward. But none of these players really boast the star potential that Trae Young has. And the issue that the Atlanta Hawks have been having is who on earth would complement Trae Young? Well, it seems like we have the answer, because according to Adrian Wojnarowski, the San Antonio Spurs are finally trading their superstar Dejounte Murray, and the haul that they're receiving is not only insane, but also a little confusing. And I think as a result of this haul, the San Antonio Spurs may have revealed their hand. So according to Adrian Wojnarowski, the Atlanta Hawks are trading Danilo Gallinari and multiple first-round picks to the San Antonio Spurs for all-star guard Dejounte Murray, sources tell ESPN. Now, as time went on, there's a little bit more information that we got in regards to the first-round draft picks. The Atlanta Hawks are sending a 2023 first-round pick via the Charlotte Hornets and their own 2025 and 2027 first round picks to the Spurs in the deal, the Spurs also will get a pick swap in 2026. Now, according to Zach Lowe, the 2025 and 2027 first rounders are unprotected Atlanta first round picks per league source. So I like this trade for the Atlanta Hawks. One, because they gave up a player who is a remarkable scorer in his own right, Danilo Gallinari, one of the most underrated scorers in the entire NBA, whose career kind of slowed down once he got traded from the OKC Thunder to the Atlanta Hawks, but is one of those players that provides offense but not so much defense. But again, you have to understand, this was not the same Danilo Gallinari as he was on the Thunder and as he was on the Clippers and even on the Nuggets as he was on the Hawks. He took significant steps back as a member of the Atlanta Hawks. So don't get me wrong, he's still a three-point sniper. In his first season with the Hawks, he was able to shoot 41% from three while attempting 5 3-pointers per game. That doesn't change, but you have to understand that the San Antonio Spurs essentially just did this so they could get 3 future first-round picks in 2025 and 2027. Now, are the Atlanta Hawks still going to be contenders at that point? I don't really know. It really depends on what they do with Dejounte Murray and Trae Young. But if you're asking me what most people think, and just based upon the fact that Victor Wembanyama is trending on Twitter, everyone thinks that the San Antonio Spurs are trading Dejounte Murray so they can improve their chances at tanking for the #1 pick in the 2023 NBA draft, which is supposed to feature Victor Wembanyama, who is the most transcendent player and most hyped up prospect that we've seen since Zion Williamson, and of course a consolation prize would be Scoot Henderson. So I'm not necessarily saying this is a horrible move by the San Antonio Spurs. If you want to go all in on Wembanyama, I could understand that. I think the return that you got for Dejounte Murray is a pretty sweet return. 3 first-round picks in the future. At the very worst, you have flexibility if you want to make moves or if you just want to add young talent. But even more impressively, the Atlanta Hawks have been rumored to try to trade John Collins for the past couple of weeks. As a matter of fact, this has been a recurring rumor over and over and over again. And it hasn't happened. They didn't need to give up John Collins and a bunch of first round picks. They had to give up Danilo Gallinari and a bunch of first round picks. And based upon their trajectory and just based upon how young this team is, I think this team is going to still be contending, at least at the very minimum, at the very worst case. If this trade blows up in their face, I think this is at the very worst a play-in team during the 2025 and 2027 season, but that's years and years down the line. I think this was a remarkable trade for the Hawks because you keep John Collins, you're able to maybe keep him on your team or maybe trade him for another asset. But even more importantly, there's a lot of people out there that are saying, oh, Dejounte Murray plays the same position as Trae Young, although I consider him to be more of a combo guard. Both of them are more combo guards. Trae Young is more of a score first point guard. And don't get me wrong, Trae Young does have the ability to create plays for his teammates. I mean, the guy almost averaged double-digit assists. But I think the more important part here is what Dejounte Murray can bring, not only as a scorer, but the man almost averaged a triple-double with the San Antonio Spurs this past year. And what I think is very significant in this case is what he could bring to the team as a defensive player as well. I mean, the length that Dejounte Murray has is insane. He is 25 years old. He fits the timeline of Trae Young and the rest of the Atlanta Hawks. So I give the Atlanta Hawks an A+ for this trade, primarily because, well, you didn't really need to give up one of your best trade chips in John Collins in order to make this trade go down. And you're able to add an all-star guard, which in my opinion is a great compliment to Trae Young. Yes, there is going to be questions about their ability to share the ball with one another, but if we saw Mike D'Antoni make it work with James Harden and Chris Paul, I have confidence that the Atlanta Hawks will be able to make it work with Dejounte Murray and Trae Young. Now, on top of that, for the San Antonio Spurs, it's very difficult to grade them here because we know what they're going for. And if it pays off, if you do successfully tank for the #1 overall pick in next year's NBA draft, or even the #2 overall pick in next year's NBA draft, then you will also get an A+ for being able to trade a player that is essentially getting you into NBA purgatory. The Spurs haven't necessarily been really good, but they haven't been really bad. So at the very worst, you get 3 future first round picks. and a nice little scoring forward that maybe you could build up and then trade in the future. But if they are able to get Victor Wembanyama as a result of this trade, then obviously I'll give them an A+ as well. But since we're kind of not in the know currently, I'll give them a B just because this could blow up in their face. They could end up with the number 4 overall pick in next year's draft, which still isn't a bad situation because at the very minimum, you're committing to either mediocrity or contention. So at least this trade gets them out of purgatory. So as I was editing this video, we got multiple updates in regards to this trade, including Greg Popovich's future, Trae Young's reaction, and a bunch of other details. So the first thing is that Trae Young tweeted out, "This poop emoji just got real. Let's get busy, my brother," with the picture of him and kind of Dejounte Murray in the back. I guess they didn't really have any good pictures together. But in addition, people are wondering, what is the future going to look like for Greg Popovich? Is he going to stick around for yet another rebuild? It seems like the San Antonio Spurs have been rebuilding forever, ever since they had to trade Kawhi Leonard or deal with Kawhi Leonard's injury issues. Well, according to Mike Finger, he reports that Greg Popovich actually gave his official blessing to the Murray trade, and while nothing is guaranteed, obviously he's completely on board with coaching a bunch of kids next season. As a team source just told me, he's excited, like he's back at Pomona Pitzer. Now, here's the interesting thing. There is this one viral report of Greg Popovich's perspective on tanking, where he said that there's a lot to unpack there. Part of it is, it's just not who we are. It's not who I am. I can't operate like that, which might not be the most intelligent overall philosophy to have. And I get that, but we am who we am. We're going to go ahead and compete. I think the young players gain a real understanding of a philosophically moral space where it's the right thing to do, to continue to compete. Frankly, I don't know how I would go to my team and say, okay guys, we're not going to compete the way we should, or how you'd get that across, or with a wink and a nod. I think you do the players a disservice if they're not able to go out and perform at the best of their ability. I think the lessons to be learned are very important as their careers advance. You hope that in the long run, that value that they gain from that will help them compete at an even higher level later. I understand the opposite, I just can't do it. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people are saying, oh, but you traded Dejounte Murray. You're clearly trying to tank. I think what Greg Popovich is saying here is that he's not going to go out there and try to throw games. He's more committed to building a culture in San Antonio than trying to marginally improve his draft odds at the number 1 overall pick. I don't think it's going to be a situation where the Spurs are going to be great because obviously they lost their best player, but I don't think Greg Popovich is just going to be taking the nights off and isn't going to be focused on player development. Now, it could result in some very brutal games to watch if you're a San Antonio Spurs fan, but I think what you could gather from this is he's going to do his best to coach this team to a situation where they could play hard every night and at the very minimum gain valuable experience for their players and help them develop further. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about this trade, man. We have so many more videos that I have to make for you guys that are all going to be dropping within the next 24 hours. The opt-in period is over. Free agency is right around the corner. I'm going to be keeping you guys all up to date. Make sure you subscribe, have my notifications on, and are following me on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter as well. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.